Hello and welcome to our walkthrough of Zettagrid's Cloud Data Center Networking. So what I'm going to do in this video is go through the latest enhancements to the vCloud networking service, which centers around bringing Edge and vOrg network configurations into the MyAccount console by way of a new network tab under the Virtual Data Center service. Firstly, if you haven't seen the previous three-part series on vCloud networking, I would encourage you to do so, as I'll be using concepts shown in these videos in this walkthrough of the MyAccount Network Features tab. Just as a quick refresh, let's take a look at the network options presented via the vCloud Director UI, and then move on to how you can use MyAccount to do basic configuration and setup of DHCP, NAT and firewall rules. So taking a look here, you're familiar with the interface through vCloud and what it presents. So effectively, when we deploy a virtual data center, you have the option of deploying a vShield Edge by default. This is the edge device for your network. And by going to the services, you can see that you have the options to configure DHCP, NAT, firewalling, as well as static routing, VPN and load balancing. So what we've done at Zettagrid is basically extract the first three and present them through the Zettagrid MyAccount portal. Taking a look at that, if we log into our account and click on the service, you will see that all existing virtual data centers now have a network tab. This network tab effectively shows you the config of the net external, which is the vShield Edge, and allows you to configure DHCP, NAT and firewall. Under the select network feature, generally you will have two options. In all cases in an Edge, you will see a mycloud.mel.per or .sydney name. That basically refers to your internet-facing device. The other selection there is your vCloud org network. So let's check back on the config and let's take a look and see what it looks like in the vCloud Director UI and try and match these names. So you can see here that the actual Edge device is net external 11965. Clicking back here, you'll see that your Edge is actually the same. Going back, if we take a look at the interface, you will see that you've got your IP ranges here, and also the name, configuration of the gateway, what type of connection it is, and what the enabled services are. If we go back to the vCloud Director portal and we right click on external IP allocations, you'll see that the external IP refers to that interface. Again, matching this selection to the bunch of ranges that we've got here. If we look at the org VDC network, you'll see that this one is called net external 11965. Now that was a legacy way of naming. If you now create a virtual data center, through the catalog, you will now get a default network here. You also have the ability here to rename and add networks, which can also be done through the MyAccount portal. Now, as this is a legacy service DC, you haven't got the option here to add additional networks. So let's quickly jump into a virtual data center quickly that has been created more recently with the new networking setup. And you have the option here to add another network. So as you can see here, as with all the options that you are given in your vCloud data center when you try and add a network, you basically have the option here of creating a routed network using the vShield Edge and then continuing the configuration from there. What you can see here is you've got the same options. You can create a routed or isolated. You then have the parent edge gateway here, which is the vShield Edge, and here you can put in your IP details, your IP ranges, DNS servers and whether it's shared. So if you were to do that, the network would be created and it would appear here, and you'll see the other network presented here. So I'm going to cancel that off and I'm going to continue to use this example network and basically run through the rest of the config options that you have. So let's take a look at DHCP. As you can see here, I already have a pool configured. Now if that was the case, you can come in and edit the pool and you can give it some basic settings, so you can modify the range and the release times. If you wanted to add a new range, the same applies. One of the key things to note here is that if you make a change to a value here, click Save, let that go and execute. If you go back to the vCloud portal, we'll see the configuring status appear, just to show you that what you're editing is actually in real time. So we'll wait for that to finish. We'll have a look at the services, and we'll see that the default lease has changed. Now it's worth noting that if you change the setting here, the inverse is true. If we wait for that to finish and configure, we can go back to the MyAccount GUI and see the same setting being set at the other side. And there we go, we're back to 3600. So again, let's have a look at natting. Let's put it on the right interface. Again, what you can see in the vCloud Director GUI, you can do and act here in exactly the same fashion. Now obviously we haven't included IPsec, static routes or load balancing, but those will come in the future. If we step along to firewall rules, you'll see here that you've got a nice interactive representation of what you actually see when you go and configure the rules in vCloud Director. So again, just to show you the configuration that happens both ways, let's change the a rule here. So let's actually go in and disable SSH on this rule. So we're going to disable that rule. Wait for the configuration to finish. Go back to the My Account portal, hit refresh, and you'll see that we've got a disabled rule here. So let's go back here and edit it, and let's re-enable the rule. Give it some time to complete. Let's go back to vCloud and see if we've got that rule enabled again. Which it is. One last thing to point out is that in the network selection here, all your interfaces from all your virtual data centers in an organization will actually be shown here if they are shared. Again, if you've come in here and you've actually shared this vOrg network, that means that it will appear in this list, even if it's from a different virtual data center. So something to be mindful of. So I guess the key point there is to give your vOrg networks a meaningful name. Let's go ahead and change this name actually just to show that. So let's change that. Let's go back here and see that we're actually calling it add blog now. Notice that the network name hasn't changed inside the selection. Hit a refresh, and we should see the name change in the select network tab there. So there we go. So there you go. So that's a quick walk through the new feature that we've released with regards to the network tab. Keep an eye out for more enhancements to this feature, as well as more advanced networking options to come. Thank you.